Welcome to Sitcom Showdown, a podcast that reviews classic sitcom episodes and inducts them into our very own Hall of Fame. As usual, one of us has chosen a sitcom episode and the other guy has no idea what it's going to be. Will they already know it? Will they love it? Can they be convinced that it's worthy? Let's find out on the Sitcom Showdown. Hello, and welcome back to Sitcom Showdown for episode 78.
Hooray!
I'm Jeffers, and Steve, you're over there.
Yep. G'day, listeners.
Ooh. And it's my turn.
Yeah. What have you got for us?
Yeah, well, finally, Steve, after many years of doing this show, we're actually going to get around to doing an episode of Dad's Army.
Ah. Very nice.
It was always on the cards that we were going to do this at some point.
Yeah.
So what I've got for you is an episode of Dad's Army from Series 6.
Far out.
Believe it or not. Because most sitcoms are getting a bit tired by Series 6.
But they were just hitting their straps, were they?
I think they were. Yeah, definitely. Well, they graduated from black and white to colour, which always helps.
Nice.
Series 6, Episode 1. And this has a cool title. It's called The Deadly Attachment.
And intriguing.
It was made in 1973. I think October. Well, I say made. Okay, that's a lie. I meant it was broadcast in late 1973.
Well, it could be a romantic attachment.
Oh, it could be, but it's not.
Oh, okay.
That's other episodes. So the short summary of this particular episode of Dad's Army, the old BBC sitcom, is that the squad has to guard a German U-boat crew that were captured by local fishermen. So for anyone who doesn't know anything about Dad's Army, I'm going to launch into it and tell you all about it. So yeah, it is a BBC sitcom. Now it's about the British militia called the Home Guard, who I think were initially called the Local Defence Volunteers.
Yep.
But that's not as catchy as Home Guard.
Nah.
Now this show ran for 9 series and 80 episodes in total. But then there was a radio version based on the scripts. And then there was a radio sequel series called It Sticks Out Half a Mile after the war. I think they're talking about the pier, Steve.
All right, okay.
Because they're
I
on
was raising my eyebrows, listeners.
Oh, dear. Well, you're about to find out why. Anyway, so so the TV series regularly gained audiences of 18 million viewers.
Far out, man. That's
bonkers, yeah.
Crazy.
Oh, and it's still repeated worldwide to this day. Now, in 2004, Dad's Army came 4th in a BBC poll to find Britain's best sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me wonder what the other 3 were.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, probably Only Fools and Horses and Steptoe and Son or something like that. Who knows? Anyhow, then there was another, on the year 2000, they made lists of everything, right? So this wasn't just for sitcoms. This is the 100 greatest British television programs of all time. The British Film Institute sort of set this up and it was voted for by your industry professionals in the game. And Dad's Army came 13th best British telly program.
It's pretty respectable.
Yeah, I reckon so.
From every show that had been made in the UK up to that point.
Well, yeah. I mean, it had to have beat Claudius and Rumpole and the crossover, Rumpolius. Anyway, the show is set in the fictional seaside town of Warmington-on-Sea. Now, this is on the south coast of England, and Warmington's Home Guard platoon, they'd sort of be on the front line if the Germans ever did cross the channel. So when the sirens go off, it's all hands to the wheel. Anyway, the platoon's formed by this local bank manager, George Manring. He immediately makes himself captain, of course, because he thinks he's a very important man around the town.
Yes.
And he makes his assistant manager the sergeant because obviously his assistant manager is used to being bossed around at work and so he can be bossed around.
Yep. And what's his name?
Sergeant Wilson.
Oh, nice. But the bank manager back in those days would have been someone that everyone knew.
Oh, yeah.
And who knew everyone.
Totally.
Especially in a small town.
Oh, yeah. He would have known all their financial situations for a start. But the rest of the platoon is made up of older men with the exception of young 16-year-old Private Pike and the spivvy black marketeer Private Walker, who presumably is in his, I'd say, mid-30s, something like that.
Is he the one with the van?
No, Jonesy's got the butcher's van.
Jonesy's got the van.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, Jonesy.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. Anyway, this, because I pinched this off Wikipedia and reworded it a bit, it says the comedy in many ways relies on the platoon's lack of participation in the Second World War, meaning that they're always practicing for stuff and nothing ever happens. But in this episode, they actually do come face to face with the enemy for the first time. Dun, dun, dun. But yeah, normally their enemies are the ARP, which is the Air Raid Precautions, Warden Hodges, who, and he doesn't come up in the character list later on, but it's played by Bill Pertwee, who was John Pertwee's cousin.
No way.
Yeah, man. Yeah, way. And Captain Square, he's the captain of the neighbouring Eastgate Home Guard platoon, and they're very competitive. Captain Square, he's a loony. Now, he's not in this episode, so he's irrelevant. Anyway, yes, there's a lot of catchphrase comedy and class comedy in this.
I think the U-boat captain is played by a famous actor.
Yes, you're quite right. You're totally on the ball. And so with that segue, Ben, let's go into actors. Captain Manring is a pompous, self-important little man, but he is brave and he's very patriotic. And Arthur Lowe, the actor, I wouldn't have described him necessarily as a comedy actor.
Mm-hmm. He's
just a great actor. But he was in some of the sitcoms, which I didn't bother to list, because I was so excited I wanted to move on quickly to John LeMessurier, who plays Sergeant Wilson. Now, Sergeant Wilson's this super chilled, almost upper class, but very upper middle class, and at one point he becomes the Honourable. Sort of lower peerage dealo. Anyway, he's essentially this timid but very nice man who goes along to get along, but he can be a bit of a romantic rogue. Anyway, he tries quietly to temper all of Captain Manring's obsession with protecting the town and doing all these mad plans he wants to do for this invasion. So his catchphrase is always saying to Captain Manring, "Do you think that's wise, sir?"
Is he a bit of a Casanova, Jeff?
He is, but it's not necessarily his fault. It's just the ladies.
Not his fault.
Yeah, the ladies all love him, so it doesn't matter what he does. Anyway,
we know all about that.
That's right.
Not.
John LeMessurier, the actor, he's one of my all-time favourite actors. And that's how I discovered the show, but I'll talk more about that later. Now, he was in over 120 British movies, so that's a pretty good record. He was in the sitcom Hancock quite a bit as different characters from time to time. Now, we mentioned him when we covered Hancock back in Sitcom Showdown, episode 16. And John LeMessurier also won a BAFTA for Best Television Actor. Not for Dad's Army, but for a Dennis Potter play. But he did that while he was in Dad's Army and all this sort of stuff. So, yes, he got it for a dramatic role.
Nice one.
Yeah. But we're sort of starting at the top in terms of ranks of these characters. So we started with the captain, and we went to the sergeant, and now we're going to Lance Corporal Jones. Played by Clive Dunn. So Jonesy, the local butcher, he's aged in his 70s. And he was an old campaigner who he enlisted in the 1800s as a drummer boy at the age of 14. And he's fought in all these wars. He fought in the 1880s, in the 1890s, in the Boer War, and in World War One.
What?
Yeah.
So is he the only one that's actually seen any action?
Well, we find out in the last episode of Dad's Army, and this is after 10 years of the show being on or something, that Sergeant Wilson was actually a captain in the First World War. And if Captain Manring had known that, he would have been all like, whoa. But Sergeant Wilson being so gentle, he never mentioned it, Anyway, getting back to Jonesy, his catchphrases are, "Don't panic," because although he's always super keen to get to grips with the enemy, he is a bit of a panic merchant. But his other catchphrases is, "They don't like it up 'em."
Well, who does?
Yeah, that's right. Nobody wants a bit of cold steel up him. But anyway, the actor Clive Dunn, he's a bit of a David Jason-esque character.
Yep.
And in fact, I think David Jason auditioned for the role, and he was 27 at the time or something like that. And he's playing a 70-something-year-old. Clive Dunn's a bit older, of course. Yeah, I know. That could be just a rumour, Steve. He was 48 when he was cast for this, Clive Dunn. So he was quite a bit younger than what he was playing. But because it's such a physical comedy role with a lot of messing about, you needed a younger man to do it.
All that clambering in and out of vans.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And diving on grenades.
Carrying sausages.
There is lots of sausages in Dad's Army. You're quite right. Now, an actor who genuinely was old as during the filming of this. John Laurie, now he plays Private Fraser, a grumpy Scottish undertaker who used to be a Navy man. He's the one who always says, "We're doomed, doomed." He's a real miser, and he does like to trash talk Captain Mannering behind his back, but also quite a bit to his face.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll just openly say all these bullshit things. And anyway, so John Laurie, the actor, he was a respected stage performer, and he did a ton of films in the 30s and 40s. So he was I think he was a colleague of Olivier's and all that sort of stuff, and did a lot of Shakespeare. Anyway, moving on. There's an actor called James Beck. Now, he played Private Walker, the spiv black marketeer chappie with a heart of gold, to go with his profit-seeking ways, which I think is why he was in the Home Guard as a bit of a networking gig and to get his hands on certain military supplies, I'm sure.
Right.
But he'd also sell them all whiskey and...
So that everyone was on
cigarettes and
rations
stuff.
back in the day.
Yeah.
Presumably, yeah.
But Walker could get anything you wanted,
Yeah.
in any quantity, and he'd flog it to you for a fair price.
With a nudge and a wink and...
After he's stolen it out of your shed.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. But sadly, actor James Beck, he died in the year this was broadcast. He was only 44.
Oh.
I think he had pancreatitis. Anyway, we're getting younger as we move on. We've got Ian Lavender, who plays young Private Pike. And so I've called him an immature fantasist mummy's boy.
Yep.
So, yeah, he always wants to do things right. He doesn't realise how dangerous they are, so he's always pretending to shoot machine guns at the Nazis and stuff. But then, as soon as anything actually happens, he's like, "Oh, gotta go home." Yeah, and his mum's always interfering with Captain Mannering, saying, "Oh, my boy Frank isn't going to do such and such, Captain Mannering. He'll catch a cold." And
Oh, dear.
so Pike was never called up to the regular army because he had a rare blood group. And he works as a clerk in the bank with Captain Mannering and Sergeant Wilson. Now, there's a complicated relationship there.
Right.
So he calls Sergeant Wilson Uncle Arthur. And, you know, it's a bit of an open secret to everyone but young Pikey that, you know, Uncle Arthur goes round to the house for tea, and Frank's mum, Mrs. Pike, looks after Arthur Wilson's ration book and sorts his food out for him. But he occasionally stays the night. But Pikey doesn't know this because he's all tucked up in bed with his teddy bear and such. And it's a bit of gossip around the town, you see.
Right.
But yeah, years after the sitcom ended, the writer Jimmy Perry said, yes, Sergeant Wilson was Pikey's dad.
Whoa.
But he never wanted to marry
Mind blown.
Mrs. Pike and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, look, let's get to the guest star, Steve, who you rightly point out is brilliant. And it's Philip Madoc as the U-boat captain. Oh, he's great. We love Philip Madoc. I never know if it's pronounced Madoc or Madoc. What do you reckon?
Madoc is what I've heard.
Oh, really? I've been saying it wrong all this time.
Maybe, who knows? So he's a great voice actor, isn't he?
I don't think he's any longer with us, is he? I'm not sure. Should we look that up?
Okay, let me rephrase my question.
Okay.
He was a great voice actor, wasn't he?
He left us in 2012.
Right.
Which is a real shame because he's brilliant. What do you remember him in, Steve?
Well, Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So what was the role in Doctor Who?
Oh, well, in the brain of Morbius, he wasn't Morbius, but he was the mad Frankenstein-y type dude trapped on the planet with the Sisters of Khan who was trying to stitch together a body for Morbius's brain to go in. And he was also in the War Games with Troughton as one of the wargamey people.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, they're all called like the War Chief
The
or the
War
War
Masters or
Master or
something.
the War... What's his name? He was one of them.
Yep.
But he was in an awful lot of sitcoms doing these one-off parts and things. So he was definitely in the goodies. And I remember him, he had a sort of recurring role in The Good Life. Yeah, Phil is one of the all-time great character actors. Now, we're taking up a lot of time here, Steve, so I want to race into the producers and
You can
writers.
chop it all out.
Cool, I will. So this is more or less the first of the Crofton Perry sitcoms.
Yep.
And the pair also did It Ain't Our Fault, Mum, from 74 to 81.
Another war-themed one. Yeah, very nice.
Oh, yeah. And then Heidi High, which went for 8 years. And You Rang My Lord, which went for 5 years. No, 6 years. So all these sitcoms they do just last forever.
Yeah, they must have overlapped a bit, hey?
Completely. Yeah, they totally did. Now, David Croft, one half of Croft and Perry, he also did, being a legendary producer and writer, he was very prolific. And with his other partnership with Jeremy Lloyd, that gave us Are You Being Served for 13 years or something like that. And then there was a sequel after that. And the great Allo Allo, of course, which we covered in Sitcom Showdown 54.
That was cool.
So the last question we traditionally answer before we go off and watch it, Steve, is how did we come across this sitcom? What are your memories?
Well, as the listeners may have guessed, I watched it back in the day, but not much since.
Oh, so back in the day being, what, back in the 1980s?
No, well, probably the late 70s.
Late 70s, crikey. Well,
late 70s, early 80s. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one because I do remember it being on when we were kids, but I had zero interest in this show.
Yeah.
Just going by the title alone. Yeah.
You didn't watch it?
No. I must have gone off and done something else or read a book when this is on because I thought, Dad's Army. Well, I'm not interested in dads and I'm not interested in armies, so this had nothing for me, and it was just a bunch of old codgers mucking about. So I didn't even watch a single episode. Yeah, that's right. I totally am. Yeah, so I ignored it, but then in the early 2000s, I got very interested in the work of John LeMessurier, and I tracked this down. And then me and Jane just bought the whole lot on DVD. Yeah, and in fact, there was a Dad's Army magazine that came out after we'd bought all these, and then every week there'd be another DVD free with the magazine. So I've got 2 runs of the entire series.
Wow.
It takes up a lot of bloody space on the shelf.
Sure.
All right, we're going off to watch this. Otherwise, we're never going to get out of here. All right, strap yourself in, right. Steve-O.
Thank you.
Who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler, if you think we're on the run? We are the boys who will stop your little game. We are the boys who will not...
A good point to remember here is the fact that no British plane contains more than 6 men. So, if you see a bunch of parachutists floating down, you count them. And if there are more than 6, you shoot them in the air.
Mr. Manring?
Yeah?
If they're dressed as nuns, do we still count them?
Count them however they're dressed. It isn't likely that a plane load of real nuns would be floating down in parachutes.
Well, it's really all quite simple, you see. When they come floating down, see, the turbulence of the air will cause their habits to rise. So therefore, you'll be able to see their legs, and so that you can tell if it's a real nun or not.
Yeah. That's a very good point, Wilson.
Thank you.
Very good. You must look at their legs.
Manring?
Yeah?
Afraid I don't know what real nuns' legs look like. I've never seen them.
Come to that, I don't think anybody has.
Mr. Brown goes off to town on the A21, but he comes home each evening and he's ready with his gun. So who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler, if you think old England's done?
Right, Steve, so you and I have just finished watching Dad's Army, The Deadly Attachment.
I'm just trying to work out what the attachment was.
Or they attached a piece of string?
We'll have to revisit that.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Don't want to spoil it for the listeners.
No. I went earlier when I was talking about the cast, and I went on some sort of a rant, but I forgot to finish my notes on Ian Lavender, Young Private Pike, which I'll just quickly do now. So yeah, he I think he's the only Dad's Army main cast member still alive. Anyway, he's 74 now, Ian Lavender, who played Pikey. He was 23 when he got the role. Mm-hmm. Now, he was in EastEnders for 4 years, and he's done a lot of TV, but as far as sitcoms go, he had little guest roles. So he had guest roles in stuff like Keeping Up Appearances, and Goodnight Sweetheart, which I guess has its own World War II sort of action going on. But yeah, so it's good that Ian Lavender's still with us, I think. Righto. Have you got any comments, Dave, before I move on and talk about the synopsis?
Well, just that the credit sequence is very iconic, both for the song that's playing, but also the graphics that come up. Yes. It's some kind of a map. Well, it's a map of Europe.
Yeah.
Showing the Nazis advancing in arrows towards the UK. And then you see the little UK arrowhead or whatever on their side of the channel, and yeah,
it tells
the story, doesn't it?
It does. There's a lot of cool movement and things like that. It's instantly recognisable, yeah.
And did you know what the tune was? I was asking you if it was one of the actors singing it, but you said no, it's an actual song from the.
Well, no,
era.
it's done by a singer from those days, Bud Flanagan, but they wrote the song for the show.
Right. Okay.
So Jimmy Perry, who's one half of the writing team, I think he wrote the song.
Huh. Well, I completely got the wrong end of the stick then. That's interesting.
They were very pleased to get Bud Flanagan to record, but I'm not sure he lasted too much longer after that. But yeah, it was pretty cool. So we open on the platoon, if that's accurate. And we've got to be careful, Steve, because military people are very specific and detail-oriented. And so I'm sure there might be someone who's a listener who'll say, it's not a platoon, Jeffrey.
Yes.
It's
something else.
Something else. Exactly. Anyway, they're in the church hall, as usual, getting a lecture from Captain Mannering. And he's giving them all the latest intel.
Latest goss.
Yeah, exactly. From GHQ about Nazi parachutists. Now... This opening exchange has nothing to do with the plot, obviously, but it is chockers with gags, and young Pike's asking about parachuting nuns, and Jonesy expands on that scenario with his own little...
fantasy scenario.
Yeah, and then Wilson kicks in with his 2 cents, and Walker, and anyway, it goes on for about 3 odd minutes. It's a nice little intro.
Yes, it's pretty funny.
Captain
Mannering just lets it go on.
My goodness. The phone rings, and it brings all that to a halt. So Captain Mannering asks Pike to answer the phone, which he goes off to do. And then Captain Mannering asks Sergeant Wilson if he's primed the Mills bombs, i.e. the hand grenades. Apparently he'd been ordered to earlier, but Wilson goes, no. That's jolly dangerous, sir. I haven't done any of that.
Who would have thought hand grenades could be dangerous?
Yeah. Anyway, he just trails off. But the captain orders Sergeant Wilson to make sure he primes them tonight, or he's going to be in big trouble. But that's an important plot point. Anyway, young Pikey comes back into the main hall from the office to tell Captain Mannering that the colonel's on the blower and he urgently wants to speak to him. And so here we find out that the local police are currently holding a German U-boat crew of 7 men and their captain that were brought in by some fishermen. So they've apparently been adrift for 2 days on this rubber dinghy. So they shouldn't give you any trouble, Captain Mannering.
I can't help thinking they should have left them with the police, though.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Much safer pair of hands.
Oh, yeah, I think you could be right. My goodness. Anyway, the platoon has to bring these German sailors back to the hall and keep them there until the army escort arrives shortly to take them away. Now, this is a pretty simple job. Captain Mannering, he's stoked about this.
Of course.
And tells the men, it's the platoon's coming face to face with the enemy at last. Anyway, so he explains all this to the men, and they're mostly all quite pleased. And old Corporal Jones in particular, he's very keen to have a crack at them.
Oh, yeah.
And he starts getting out his bayonet, and he's... Yes. Anyway, the captain has to tell Jonesy to calm down, and they all pop off to get these Germans, but meanwhile, Pikey and Wilson have been left behind to prime those darn Mills bombs.
Yes.
But anyway, as Pike and Wilson are priming the grenades, they notice there's a bit of a shortage on detonators, and young Frank says, there's more in the cupboard, and he's really keen to load up these grenades.
Well, he's been watching some gangster films or something like that.
Share this pineapple between you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's classic. That's coming up later. Yes, so where are we? Yeah, so Wilson says, listen, I've found these dummy detonators in the cupboard. I dare say we should use those just in case, because, some of the platoon shouldn't be in charge of hand grenades. And so young Pikey's very disappointed because he wants them fully armed. Anyway, Wilson does use the dummy detonators and he's not obeying orders. And Pike tells him that Captain Mannering's going to be very cross if he finds out. We cut forward to the return of the platoon a bit later with the Germans in tow. They put all the German sailors in the middle of the hall. And as you pointed out, Steve, which I didn't realise, like all of the platoon are surrounding them in a circular formation, all with their guns pointed.
Directly opposite each other.
Yeah, typical circular firing squad stupidity. Oh my goodness. Jonesy's shouting, in a huddle, on the double, in the middle of the hall. And I just thought that was a nice bit of almost alliteration. Captain Mannering, meanwhile, tells Private Fraser, the Scotsman, to go and get the Lewis gun and set it up on the stage to get a clean sweep of the hall in his sights. I mean, that's all very well, but you are going to cut down all your own.
It's a bit of overkill.
It is a bit of overkill. It's a huge thing, this Lewis gun, isn't it? It's massive.
Yeah, well, I guess they've probably painstakingly taken care of it for so many months and years, waiting, itching for the day where they might get to whip it out in action.
Oh, well, fair enough then. So Sergeant Wilson and Private Pike, they start asking Captain Mannering about these Germans. And he replies that they haven't had any trouble yet, but this U-boat captain chappie, he's a surly brute who just stares, sneers, and smokes cigarettes. To which Wilson idly goes, I wonder if he's got any ciggies to spare, because I've sort of run out. And Captain Mannering says, this isn't a cocktail party, Wilson.
Yeah.
Oh, dear, oh dear. He's so casual. He then brings Captain Mannering, brings in his two officers even closer, Sergeant Wilson and Old Corporal Jones. And he says, listen, I need you to be on maximum security here. I want you to watch them like a hawk until the armed guard arrives to collect them. Now, it's at this point that Jonesy suggests that they chop off the Germans' trouser buttons. Why does he suggest this, Dave?
So they would be easily recognised as out of place.
Yeah.
And it's harder to run away, I guess, when
with your trousers.
Yeah, trousers around your ankles.
Yeah. I thought that was a jolly decent plan. I couldn't see how it could backfire.
True.
Yeah. Anyway, the German U-boat captain...
But it's against the Geneva Convention, isn't it?
That's right.
Chop someone's buttons off their trousers.
Yeah.
And then if there should be some person nonchalantly walking down the street and they see the men with all their trousers around their legs, they will make some inquiries.
You don't dare to do anything of the sort. The Geneva Convention states clearly, the prisoners of war shall not be put in humiliating positions.
You'll be in humiliating position if you get this up here, mate.
Don't threaten me, you silly old fool.
Anyway, after that, the U-boat captain blows smoke in Captain Mannering's face.
Yes. I was half expecting Captain Mannering to turn around, grab the rifle off Jonesy and start trying to
go him
with the bayonet as well.
No, he's very level-headed, Captain Mannering, and he was choking a bit from the smoke.
Yeah.
As well. Oh dear. Anyway, then there's a whole bunch of stuffing around where Godfrey has fallen asleep, and Pike doesn't want to climb a ladder.
Yes.
Then the phone rings, and the Colonel tells Captain Mannering that the armed escort can't make it, Steve, until tomorrow, and the Home Guard's going to have to guard the Germans all night. I know.
Oh no!
With only their own sandwiches to last the whole night.
Yeah.
So the Colonel says, look, make sure these Germans, you've got to, bed them down, give them a blanket, and, make sure they eat something. And then when Captain Mannering does point out that they've only got their own sandwiches, he tells Captain Mannering to go out and buy them some fish and chips.
Yeah.
Now, I liked your comment when you saw that, Steve.
That was probably luxury.
Yeah. As you said.
Fish and chips. Waste good fish and chips on the Germans.
It's much better than what the troop themselves are eating.
They've probably got cheese and pickle sandwiches.
Yeah, with week-old bread and month-old pickles. Yeah, Captain Mannering can't believe this. He obeys the Colonel, though, but he's muttering fish and chips. He tells the platoon that the situation's changed and they'll be guarding the Germans all night. And then he says some stuff about the Germans being a nation of automatons with a leader who looks like Charlie Chaplin. Now, the U-boat captain doesn't react well to this.
He takes umbrage.
I'm making notes, Captain, and your name will go on the list. Oh, dear. Anyway, then we get a classic exchange, which we can only do justice by playing a clip.
I am making notes, Captain. And your name will go on the list. And when we win the war, you will be brought to account.
You write what you like. You're not going to win this war.
Oh, yes, we are.
Oh, no, you're not.
Oh, yes, we are.
Whistle while you work. Hitler is at work. He's half army, so's his army. Whistle while you...
Your name will also go on the list. What is it?
Don't tell him, Pike.
Pike.
Right, so young Pike gets all upset, Steve, that his name is now on the list. And he pleads with Uncle Arthur, Sergeant Wilson, to have a nice word with the German captain to try and get his name taken off the list. Which is
that's going to work.
Completely absurd. Oh, dear. So Captain Mannering pulls Private Walker aside and says, listen, here's 10 shillings to go and buy fish and chips for the prisoners. And so Walker, he just counts up the number of Germans, and there's 8 Germans, and he just writes down 8 serves of cod and chips. And he's saying it out loud as he's penciling it into his little order book, which he's always got with him because he's always taking orders off people to sell them stuff.
Oh, have we mentioned, by the way, that Pike's been given this Tommy gun?
No, we haven't mentioned that.
So the guy who's obsessed with gangster films is standing on top of a ladder very precariously, holding a Tommy gun.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
I don't know. Yeah, I think in another episode he calls it the Chicago piano. I'm going to play the Chicago piano. Oh, my word. Classic stuff. Oh, it's good. Yeah, we're in the middle of this brilliant fish and chips exchange, Steve. So the German captain interrupts Walker writing down this order, and he goes, I don't want cod, I want place. So Walker goes, yep, that's 1 place and chips, 7 cod and chips. Now, who wants vinegar? And so there's this whole thing of
this goes on.
He's asking, who wants salt and who wants vinegar? And then the German captain will relay to his bods in German, and then they all put their hand up if they want salt. Yeah, that's right. You can't hear us clanking on the floor, but they step to attention. Oh, it's all brilliantly done. Anyway, it's a whole palaver. And Captain Mannering, he's across the hall. He can't believe what's going on. And he just shouts at Walker to get them basic fish and chips on the double. But the German captain says, I don't want any nasty soggy chips.
I don't want any of your soggy chips.
How does he want his chips, Steve?
Chris, trying to work out how to say crispy in a German accent.
Yeah, on them
crispy.
Und light brown. And so Walker writes down, saying it out loud, he writes down crisp and light, and Captain Mannering loses it at this point. So we cut forward to the middle of the night, and the platoon, they're getting very tired, and they're starting to grumble a bit. And meanwhile, the German captain, he's still at full alert. He's smugly staring at Captain Mannering wherever Captain Mannering goes in the hall, and he's being all smarmy. But in the office next to the church hall, we see that the ARP warden Hodges, who doesn't get on with Captain Mannering, he's come in from his light spotting rounds with the verger. Anyway, they're knocking off for the night, and they decide to go next door and, quote, say goodnight to Napoleon, because they all think that Captain Mannering's got, Napoleon complex. Anyhow, I thought that was rather nice of them, because normally they're not really on speaking terms.
Yep. They've had a couple of drinks at this point, haven't they?
Oh, yes, I think you're right, because Captain Mannering might mention that later on. Yeah, they've probably been down the pub.
Oh, they say... The verger says, don't mention the fact that we had this drink too.
Oh, yeah, the vicar wouldn't like that. Right, where are we? Yes, so they go in to say goodnight to Captain Mannering, and I think what happens is, the German U-boat captain sees these, we'll call them civilians, walking in as an opportunity to pull a fast one.
Yep.
But we don't know that at this point. Anyway, he pretends to be very, very sick, and he falls to the floor going, oh, my stomach, I'm dreadfully ill. And I like it. Walker says.
It was probably the soggy chips.
Yeah. Oh, man. Forcing them to eat all the soggy chips. Captain Mannering thinks it's a trick. Obviously, they shouldn't trust the sneaky German. But Warden Hodges says, what are you afraid of? They're just some harmless German soldiers. And so Captain Mannering goes in and checks the chappie's pulse and his breathing. Then the German captain pinches Captain Mannering's gun from its holster in a lightning move.
Yep.
And he sort of points it towards Warden Hodges' head, who he's got in a headlock, I think. Anyway, he's taking Warden Hodges hostage.
It's not a good look to have your pistol stolen from you, is it?
Oh, no. Yeah,
that would be frowned upon.
Disciplinary charges and all that sort of business. Yeah, so there's a standoff, right? And we've cut ahead a bit, and all the Germans are now in the office, off the hall, and all our guys are in the hall pointing guns at the door of the office.
Yep, and they've got a couple of people set up outside watching the window so the Germans don't jump out the window or something.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, word comes in from the German U-boat captain who sends the verger in to relay the message that unless the Dad's army bods escort them down to the harbour so they can catch or steal a fishing boat to France, they're going to kill Warden Hodges. And Fraser just goes, well, you must admit, Captain, you never really liked Warden Hodges. So
yeah.
No problem there.
It's not much of a downside.
And then they get into some ridiculous, Jonesy and Pikey are saying, I saw a hostage thing where they did this and this and this, and maybe you could do this, Captain Mannering. But anyway...
all these scenarios from films again.
Yeah, that's right. And one from David Copperfield, which gives Captain Mannering an idea that they can acquiesce to the Germans' demands, because as they're escorting them down to the harbour, someone in the town is bound to say something. and raise an alarm.
Seems completely stupid to me.
It does seem completely stupid. And now what I should point out to our dear listener, Steve, is that, because the last I mentioned time, it was the middle of the night. But what's happened is the German U-boat captain has said, here's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you until dawn to decide.
Yep.
And it's not until the last minute at dawn that Captain Mannering says, okay, we'll do it your way. And we'll all go down to the harbour. And then the Germans come in and strip our boys of all their guns.
Yeah, this is the stupidity. Stupidity.
Yeah.
Stupidity.
Thank you, Baldrick.
Stupidity bit.
Yeah.
They let them, instead of just escorting them down there at gunpoint, they hand over their weapons.
Which is completely bonkers. Anyway, let's not worry about that bit. So the state of play at the moment is, at this point, we find out that they've got this crafty plan, right, the Germans, in which they're forcing the Home Guard guys to mock escort them through the town with empty rifles. So to the public, it looks like the Britishers are in control.
Yep.
But they're not. Now, the way they're doing this is because the German captain is going to be directly behind Corporal Jones with a string in his hand surreptitiously attached to a grenade down Jonesy's trousers.
Yep.
Now, does this all make sense the way I've explained it?
It does to me.
All right, good. I'll try and paint a picture. They're all walking through town. It all looks normal. The Germans have got some grenade action down Jonesy's pants to make sure that the Britishers go along with the plan.
Yep. They're in the middle.
Yeah.
Surrounded by the Dad's Army people.
That's right. So it's not looking good for Captain Mannering's plan that someone will raise an alarm. They get to the harbour, but the Germans are about to take the Dad's Army chaps. You know, once they board a boat, they'll take the Dad's Army chaps on board as hostages. And then, this is so that the British ships won't fire upon them.
Yep.
And then when they get back to France, then they'll be the prisoners of the Germans. And then what happens?
Well, the list will come out.
Yeah. They will examine the list. Oh, okay, so that's the setup here, right? So we cut to them walking through town, which was a nice bit of location work, I thought.
Yep.
And the Colonel's coming the other way because he had said previously that he's going to meet Mannering at 8 o'clock at the hall with the armed guard.
Yep.
So the Colonel's on his way to go and collect the armed guard from the railway station. Anyway, he says, what are you chaps doing walking these Germans around? Sorry?
Fancy seeing you here.
Fancy seeing you here. And they said, yeah, because Captain Mannering's sort of umming and ahhing. And Walker and Fraser and stuff say, we're just taking the Germans out for a nice walk because they've been cramped up in this submarine and they need some fresh air and we like to bring them down to the docks because they like a sea breeze. Blah, blah, blah.
Very considerate.
Yeah. And this is all tickety-boo to the Colonel. Don't worry, just make sure you're back at the hall at 8 and blah, blah, blah. And then he sees, what's going on with Corporal Jones here? He's normally very smartly turned out and he's got none of his equipment there and there's a big piece of string hanging back of his trousers. And then he grabs the string and rips it out of Jonesy's trousers. Everybody hits the deck. Yeah. Oh, God.
Mayhem.
Yeah, absolute mayhem. So Jonesy's sort of, you can't see me doing the movements, but he's in a complete panic.
Yep.
And Fraser's
wondering how he can get this
live
grenade out of his pants.
He's only got 10 seconds to do it before his body gets blown off. And everyone else has hit the dirt. And Sergeant Wilson calmly asks the Colonel to borrow his pistol, and he's saying, I'll return it in a moment. So now that Wilson is armed, and all the Germans are on the ground thinking that the grenade's going to blow up, the tables have turned back in favour of the Dad's Army bods, and so Wilson politely but firmly orders the German sailors to get up off the ground and get up against the wall. Now, the Colonel's very confused by all of this, and meanwhile Jonesy is still going mad and shouting and running around, and Fraser's got his hands down the back of Jonesy's trousers trying to fish this grenade out. And actually, I'd forgotten, but Walker has his bayonet and says, I'll cut it out, as if he's going to rip open the fabric of Jonesy's trousers. You don't want to do that with the seconds ticking away, do you?
Yeah. And they're not a baggy pair of trousers.
No.
It's not like you can safely put the bayonet through
and go
a massive fold of fabric and slice it open.
And they're designed to be
skin tight.
Yeah, and they're designed to be tough, hard-wearing fabric. Yeah. Oh, blimey.
Well spotted, Jeff.
Yeah, they're
that's
designed
attention to detail.
Yeah, well, that's right. So I was about to say they're designed to be bayonet-proof, but I don't think they are.
No, I don't.
No.
I don't think they are.
What's the point of having bayonets?
All the bayonet-proof trousers were given to people at the front line.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, they soon realised the grenade should have gone off quite a while ago. Captain Mannering yells at Wilson, saying, "Oh, why didn't you prime those grenades like I told you to?" And then he actually realises what he's saying and says, "Oh, well, you saved all of us. You saved Jones's life." But the final line, of course, is Jonesy interrupting all of this to say, "Sir, do you think now that the crisis is over, you could ask Fraser to remove his hand from the back of my trousers?"
Yeah.
Hey.
Nice one.
And that's the end. And I thought that was a smashing way to end an episode with a reference to someone having his hand down the back of someone's trousers.
Yep.
It's all very British. And that was it.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I'm going to hand it over to you, Steve, if you've got any particular bits that stuck out in your estimation.
I did write down a few gags.
Cool.
Ugh. Let's get the glasses. I'm just going to run through the list. So there's a quote from early on in the parachuting scenario.
Oh, the Nazi parachuting.
Yeah, so the problem that they were discussing during this briefing was how to discern the difference between a German paratrooper and a British pilot that's been shot down.
And has had to bail out.
All you can see is, a parachute coming down from the sky. So they're too far off to see uniforms or anything like that. And Captain Mannering says something like, "Not that our pilots get shot down very often."
That's right.
Preposterous idea to suggest that.
That a British pilot would ever get shot down? Not our boys.
No.
And Wilson just rolls his eyes at that.
Yeah, that was good. Then just a little bit further on, when Jonesy's walking them through his scenario with the nuns
who have escaped.
He's completely off in fantasy land. He puts his hand on his hip,
like nuns do,
to pretend that he's a nun. Oh, it was classic.
A very glamorous nun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, I won't talk about looking at the nun's legs. You might choose to do that. Yes, and you've already given the line about this isn't a cocktail party, Wilson.
Yeah.
When he's considering the fact that he might be able to bum some cigarettes off the U-boat captain. Yeah, he says to he and Wilson are having a chat, and I think they're talking about the language barrier, because I don't think they realised at this point that the U-boat captain can speak English.
No, because he hadn't spoken. You're quite right.
So they're saying, how are we going to deal with this anyway? The captain says, "Oh, don't worry, they'll recognise authority when they hear it. Come with me, Wilson."
Oh my goodness!
Just in case, you come along too. That was really good.
So that's the beautiful, subtle touches that I think make it a quality program.
Yep.
Anyway,
that's all I've got, apart from some notes about John
Le
Mesurier.
Yeah.
Yep. So back to you.
Oh, okay. I had to cross out a few gags because you mentioned them there, because they're just classic. But I did love the bit where Pike and Wilson are setting up the hand grenades, and it's just, Frank Pike play acting with the hand grenades. And he shouts, "All right, guys, it's a showdown. Share this pineapple between you," which is a classic line he's obviously got from a movie. And he's totally acting this out like a child. And it's just glorious to see him doing that. But then a few minutes later, when he has to climb a ladder with his Tommy gun, he can't do a simple thing like climb a ladder.
He was perfectly illustrating Wilson's point about hand grenades being dangerous things.
Yeah. When you've got a teenager mucking about with them.
People can't be trusted with them.
Yeah, and I reckon some of the guys in the platoon have got very shaky hands.
Yeah.
Pike, quote to Captain, "Oh, I can't climb ladders, Captain Mannering. I've got a doctor's note and everything." He's
saying this in front of the
German.
The captured German soldiers.
Oh, wow.
They're really quaking in fear.
Yeah. And we discussed the brilliance of the fish and chips order. Like, all Walker had to do was buy some basic fish and chips.
He's a professional, Jeff. He's a professional.
Yes. This is the character work, right? So he's so used to...
He's all about the specifications.
Selling, and the specifications and, people, and he's just there to please the customer. It looked like he's actually having a great time filling this order. Anyway, that was it's all-time great stuff.
Well, they've got this, they appear to have this encyclopedic knowledge of fish and chips. Do Germans have fish and chips? Oh, what's all this business?
I think they do. Sergeant Wilson, because he's just so nice. And he goes, "You've got to make allowances for the U-boat captain's rough manners." So he's probably a little bit upset because he sank his submarine.
Yeah. Surprised they didn't use that. Have a go at him, actually.
Mm. Oh, yeah, to score points and say, if you were any good, why'd you sink your submarine?
Yeah.
I don't know, they're too polite for that.
It's the Geneva Convention. Doesn't allow for that.
Yeah. But they're so polite, and it's that takes me back to the nuns. And Godfrey says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Captain Mannering, but I'm not sure I could."
Look at a nun's legs.
It's dreadfully impolite, he says. And like Captain Mannering says, "This is war, Godfrey."
Frank's saying, "I've never seen a nun's legs.
I don't know what they look like.
I wouldn't know the difference between a German officer's legs and
a nun's legs, and they'd be horrible, hairy ones with jackboots.
Yeah.
But what happens if it's real nuns wearing jackboots with horrible, hairy legs?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just magnificent. But yeah, last of all, it's just the menacing smile of Philip Madoc when he's putting a grenade down Jonesy's trousers. He's just so pleased with himself. Anyway, they're all my highlights.
Yep.
So before I launch into my case, what have you got there, Steve?
Just about John Le Mesure's. Did I say that right?
Well, I say John Le Mesurier, but that's no guarantee of actually how it's supposed to be pronounced.
Anyway, the listeners know who I'm talking about. His acting is just fantastic. Very naturalistic, and his expressions.
Oh, there's something very unique about him.
Yep. He's tongue acting.
Has he got...
Like, there's this, when he's got this thoughtful look on his face, he does something with his tongue and...
Yeah, stares
it's all very interesting what he's doing.
Oh, yeah. He's a magnetic dude.
He's unflappable, this character.
I think he plays the same character in everything he does.
Oh, really?
But people just love it. So they
can't get enough of it.
Give us more, they say.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. All right, well, I'll just launch into this then, if that's cool with you.
Yeah.
My opening gambit here is that it doesn't really matter what decision we come to, because this is already one of the most loved episodes of one of the most well-regarded sitcoms in TV history. So, doesn't really matter what we say, even if it doesn't get into the Hall of Fame. But in a nutshell, though, this episode of Dad's Army has, it's got stakes. I know you like stakes, Dad.
Yep, I do.
So that's guided my choice, because there was a lot of good ones to choose from. It's got a lot of tension, but our characters are sort of finally coming face to face with the enemy, which is a situation that normally, it's no longer theoretical, and these are the situations where a person's true self comes out. And I thought it was nice to see that these characters we've spent 5 series with prior are still themselves when faced with this horrible danger.
Yep.
With hilarious results. And this is also where we find out if all their training has worked. And they didn't do particularly well in some aspects, I must say.
There's room for improvement.
Oh, yeah. That's all part of the comedy. But this isn't a glorifying thing, where they're the perfect soldiers facing the enemy. They're still the same clumsy, brave but cowardly, foolish but steely and crafty, all at the same time. They're still doing all the things they normally do. And that's the example I was saying before about Walker being so accommodating with the fish and chips, or Wilson being super cautious. And Captain Mannering, when he says to the German U-boat captain, "Listen, don't do that to Jonesy. As the leader of this unit, I demanded that the grenade be placed down the back of my trousers."
Yep.
And he leads from the front, and this is the brilliant thing about Captain Mannering, despite the fact he's completely unlikable. And even better than that, it was Jonesy saying, "No, sir, I won't let them do that to you. I'll take 16 grenades down my trousers before I let them do that to you. I won't crack."
Before I crack?
Before I crack, yeah, that's right. Oh,
I thought it was hilarious that he mentioned his crack.
I only just got that
in the context of them shoving
hand grenades down there. Oh, my goodness. Yes. And look, any episode with Philip Madoc in it being as good as this, and he totally nails the German language stuff. I thought that was specky. And lastly, you just have to say this is the episode with the "Don't Tell Him" Pike line, which got a good laugh out of you, I thought.
Yep.
So all in all,
very good.
It's just a nice story of ordinary old men and a scared kiddie trying to be brave and protect their village and give the Nazis what for. And it's all brilliantly played by veteran actors and, just well-made stuff.
Yep, no, I totally agree with all that.
Oh, brilliant.
It was super enjoyable.
Look, I'm ever so pleased to finally get Dad's Army into the hall.
Mission accomplished.
Woohoo! Okay, which means that next month it's your turn, Steve, or is it going to be...
Yeah, well...
Is it Halloween?
Who can resist it?
Yeah, oh, good.
Have to stick with the tradition and go for a Halloween-themed episode.
All right. Have you narrowed it down to the final few?
That's a long way away.
Wow.
Plenty of homework to do between now and then.
All right, cool. So we'll see our dear listeners next time for some Halloween action.
Yeah, it'll be fantastic.
All right, well, thanks again.
Yeah, take care, everyone. See you in a month.
Ta-ta.
Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.